Hello. Not knowing what time of the day or night you might be seeing this, whatever time it is, welcome. My name is Greg Sullivan. Welcome to the Living Novel. That's a wonderful podcast that we're doing out of LTV here in Wainscott. It attaches itself to a website. It's a book website. It's kind of interactive. It's a new genre of literature, is what I'm calling it. Soon you're going to be able to log in with me, and we're going to do some interactive things, and I'm going to walk you through it. But I'm going to I have a wonderful guest, so I want to get to him very quickly. But just to start off, kind of the way I did in our last show, just for everybody to understand, the never in the course of human history, never in the course of our species, have things taken place as what is happening right now with us. We are changing, we are evolving, we do have a new name for our species now, but never before has the percentage of humanity been involved and actively writing as we have that percentage today. Everybody is writing every day. You're writing online, you're text messaging, your social media, you're sending stories to people, you're giving information, but the amount of writing we are all doing has just exploded in a way that you never would have imagined. You look back in the past, you might have had a monk someplace who was writing. You might have a scribe who'd write something, and then more and more people got literate, and then more and more writing and more. But now everybody is writing, and everybody is writing what their story is of today, who they are, what they are, who, what, when, where, why, and how of their lives. And everybody's sharing themselves with everybody else. We're connecting in ways we never did before. And when I look at this, I just can't even conceive what kind of profound effect this wave of writing is having, because we've never in the course of humanity or in mankind. Joe, do you mind? Let's say mankind, is that like now politically incorrect?
I think you could say that.
Okay, mankind, womankind, non-binary. You don't even know what to call ourselves anymore, but that's part of it. We are all changing, and this writing to each other and writing about everything every day. We are writing our novels. The novel of humanity is being written every day right in front of you. Years and years into the future, looking back, we are going to look back at this period and say, look at all of humanity started writing their stories and writing their novels about who they are and what they are. And that's got to have a profound effect. But I look at that and I say, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that evolutionary change. I want to kind of be at the front of the wave and look at how that's doing. So I've created what I'm calling is a new genre of literature. It's a living novel. It's a novel that incorporates an interactive writing with everybody. We're going to go into more of it later. But in just out of respect for this wonderful guest here, I am going to get back to it, but you're going to see wonderful, fun things to do, like talking, and Haim, I'll talk to you about it too, like pet peeves. There's a section for pet peeves. We have a novel, 13 chapters, that's about the past. We have a blog that's about the present. And then we have a section called That Went Out with the Mayan Calendar. And it's all those things that we need to get rid of. And the Mayan calendar is very interesting that the Mayan calendar ended now. The Industrial Revolution that our generations have gone through, the computer evolution of accumulating data, and now the AI evolution that is really changing humanity. This incredible change happening right now, right when the Mayan calendar ended. How interesting is that? So in the one section that went out with the Mayan calendar, there's all kinds of fun things to do about how we can look at ourselves and what we can change to make the world better, and to actually, through conscious evolution, talk to each other and decide where we want to go and how we want to be. And just before I get to time, that fact that right now all of our writing is about today. We're writing about today, and when you get on social media and Instagrams and Facebooks and all the conversations about how men and women are interacting, and then psychological disorders like narcissism. Suddenly we're talking about narcissism, but all of that is about who we are and what we're doing today. But I promise you, and I predict that very shortly, as we're all kind of catching up to what we're doing and catching up and having this conversation until we're all syncing up, that kind of it's not kismet, but the all syncing up with each other, that very shortly we're all going to turn our attention not so much about where we are today and what we need to think of today, but we are all collectively going to be starting to write about the future and what we want to see in the future and who we want to be, and recognizing that we do create our own experience and we are much more powerful as creators than we ever expected, ever knew. And now what we write and how we write it and what we choose to write and what we choose to think about will define who we are and what we are going into the future. And the collective consciousness and the collective conversations and writing of our novel of humanity is going to start to change now to talk about where we want to be and who we want to be and how we want to do it. But we'll talk more about that later. Right now, I have a legend, Hampton's legend, a legend from LTV, a guy that I just love. I met him years and years ago, and his this guy is profound, and his talking and his artwork. He's got a lot of different art forms. Paintings is one, but also speaking and thinking. Haim Mizrahi thinks in an art form way. So I want to say, Haim, I'm so glad you're here again. It's great to see you. You're looking great.
Well, thank you for inviting me, even though we're like in the same venue where I'm every day. So I got to pretend like I'm not here. But just one correction. It's not writing, it's searing.
Yes, yeah.
Okay? So what happens that if at best you sear yourself not to forget to write. So you kind of give yourself a warning ahead of time. And I was intrigued by the fact that you bring it to a level where in itself is so thought-provoking, and that we, even if we take all the amount of writing, we'll arrive to a conclusion that 90% of it is just small talk. Still, nevertheless, it's a form that we're better off preserving rather than letting it dissipate into the thin air. And I was a writer, like writing, and I see the volume of what I handwritten, and that went away for a while. And then I reacquainted myself with writing, just so I can feel that the truth behind it, and you can very few bypassing options you have when you handwrite, as opposed to click or putz around with your computer. You leave many things behind if you encounter with the computer when it comes to writing rather than handwriting.
That's why I love the conversation between us, and I wanted you back here again. You just said what was right on the tip of my tongue, to say writing and my thought processes are a little different. Yours is a true artist thought process, how you think about things, how you look at things, what you recognize. But in the writing, what you just said, when I would speak about something and the words I'd use, they come out one way. But when I'm actually using a pen and paper, not even that much typing it changes as well, but it's like this other vocabulary, these other conjugations, these other formations of words. Sometimes I'm writing. What was it? The artist Edward Albee, when he asked, "What do you write about? Or how do you write?" And he goes, "I don't know. I just write to see what I'm writing about."
Yeah.
When I'm writing, I'm looking to see later. It's like, wow, look what I've written. It's just something different happens when you're writing in the thought process. But you understand that better than me because, again, your artistic temperament but what you just said, the writing.
Yeah, but it's interesting because at the same time it's really not as important as much as it is very important. You know what I mean? So because we got to be careful not to find ourselves dwelling too much because we get involved in with the dwelling aspect of it, because there's no other way, because you want to become a part of the story. It's painful because we're not Hans Fallada or Martin Gilbert. We cannot deliver exactly. I mean, we have the story just as good as any other legend of the past, but we have zero capability to execute it, to actually really make sure that this dinner is suitable to be consumed, without anybody going to the hospital or something. But um, you want to pay the least amount uh, of whatever it is in order to reach your goal. So you're ready to accept pain, you're ready to accept confusion, you're ready to accept obstacles and difficulties, but you want to know at the end of the day that you did your best to spare yourself from unnecessary pain or unnecessary confusion, because then of course it's that much time that you would need to rebound and to recapture and to go back to where you were. So I try to stay away from it as if I stay away from fire, to treasure my energy. So as much as so in an instant, writing becomes trivial in the face of trying to preserve maybe a knowledge that works for you and makes your life easier. And guess what? This is something that you maybe unknowingly worked on, but you worked on it whether you know it or not, and it's there for you to serve you. And but you got to realize that it's there. How many people? I don't think there's anyone, even Jody. He wakes up in the morning. Half of the things that is a given in his life he's not even aware of, because life works for him for his own sake. It wants to be a part of itself. Its defense mechanism. Maybe just the thing that will like hit a spark, and something from the night before suddenly becomes clear, and he's not aware how come, but he won't bother to try and find out how come. He knows how he's going to proceed with that surprise, how he's going to utilize it, put it to work for him.
Well, Jody's got that a nice chemistry.
And you and I, for the sake of the argument, of course.
Jody's got a nice chemistry because he's a musician, he's an artist, and then he's also a technician. So it's a lot of different, disciplines in your mind.
He's a great poet.
Yeah, this is a tease. You guys can't see Jody, but he's right here. We love him. Great guy, very helpful, and I'm glad he's in here with us.
I do have a microphone though,
so be careful. That's be careful.
He's got a voice.
Yeah.
He's got a voice. But how do you convince the world out there that actually, more often than not, things that are extremely important are spareable? You can do without. But as long as it's almost like I don't know. I read a few years ago that for tuberculosis, once if you were exposed to it, you would have to take medication for 3, 4, 5 months. And suddenly, some research that they made, they arrived at the conclusion that if you take for 2 weeks, it's just as good. It serves the purpose. So, so how do you convince people that are so used to do it the way they do it, and that consumes them, and it translates itself to dwelling, and dwelling translates itself to potential confusion, unnecessary, by the way, and that's and it spells so many kind of ripple effects. So lucky for me, those who suggested things to me were people that I look up to. I admire them. It was my luck that I would look at a person and say, no, wait, and I'm not listening to him, because I know who is sitting across from me. So immediately I realized I need to be thankful, because look, he's giving me something. The whole world knows who he is. He's a powerful figure, but he takes the time to tell me something, to share with me. So, of course, it's a no-brainer, but what do you have to go, and how much do you have to go to arrive to this conclusion?
Listen, you're touching on a subject with and those things that are no longer necessary. Let's go to that. I'm going to go to that expression, separate the wheat from the chaff. Even in conversations, sometimes people, I'm listening to conversations and they're saying like these cliches, like they have to say these words to lead up to something. It's like, you didn't have to say all that, just get to the point. But in writing, but in art, but what you're saying, how do you start to convince people you don't need all of that stuff? There's actually, you can have a nicer experience and a more efficient communication with people if you start to discard some of the old habits of communication and of writing and trying to and of the it's how do you change? One of the hardest things I heard. One of the hardest things that there is to get people to change the way they are thinking, because we get used to something. We come in, and you as an artist, you know this, Jody, you too. It's the Schopenhauer said, all great ideas and great thought processes go through three phases. First, they're ridiculed. If you're telling something that they're used to it this way, and you tell them something new, it's like, oh, no, they don't another way. But then if you keep forcing something to look at this, no, the world is not flat, it's round, and you force it, you get violently opposed. Nobody wants to leave their comfort level. This is what they know. They don't really want to have to change. But so what you were just kind of driving at is, how long does it take? What do you have to go through to get people to really adopt some new way of thought, not wasting your time on things that aren't valuable? But in those three processes, first you're ridiculed, second you're violently opposed, and then when everybody gets it, they just take it as self-evident. Oh, and like then they thought of it. But that thought process, ridicule, violently opposed, and then take it as self-evident. And so we come to these places now that certain new understandings just become self-evident. But what you were just saying, the pain, I love that you're using that term, the pain you kind of go through, the growing pains to come to newer conclusions, and what you have to do, and the confusion. And change is very confusing.
They're all independently effective. But let's go to AI. Don't say what it is. I don't like when people say what AI is, because AI can be also artistic inspiration, as much as I'm concerned. AI can be IIA, which is we'll leave it for later. But let me enlighten you by saying, if you don't know how to ask the question, then intelligence is stupid. Do you understand? Wisdom is stupid, because what exactly? Let's just say that there's wisdom out there. If you're not going to actualize it by mastering it, it's not going to be anything that you can speak in the name of or claim, correct? It's passive, It's amazing how wisdom can be so passive, yet so wide-ranged and so deep and so from end to end, from the globe and the stars and whatever, and eternity and whatnot. But still, if you cannot ask the question that will make it suddenly feel maybe human qualities, so it will kind of start moving, start making sound. I mean, mostly sound of discomfort, because it's almost like you're blind and now you can see suddenly. So it's not like if you can see suddenly and you were blind, that you will be to go in stages, evolutionary process for you to digest and to realize what just happened, or where is it going, where it's coming from. You just like living the moment, because the moment is more powerful than you in that revelation. Suddenly you can see. So if you don't know how to ask a question, or if you cannot ask the question, wisdom is obsolete. It's meaningless. It's static. It's passive. It's selfish. So to begin with, maybe number one task is to teach people how to ask. And then when you get to know the idea of what it means, that there is a better way than other to ask, then you start thinking about what is it that you're going to ask. And one thing I can volunteer to you and tell you, some of my guests, when we were in the big hall for at least 15 years, had an attitude, and I felt like they want me to fail. For whatever reason, it's not my job to try and figure out why. And even if I was able to figure it out, it wouldn't benefit me. It wouldn't get me anywhere. But I wanted to prove to the other person, without him or her knowing, but it will be evident, that either that individual is going to make a fool of himself, or get a grip with himself, or remove himself from the scene. So I would ask a question that individual suddenly realizing that there's something that is out of his league. So if he needs to react, he would have to say, I didn't understand what you just asked. Can you please repeat? But the trick is to react sooner than his reaction and say, let me explain it differently. You know what I mean? Like, if Solomon,
Jody, we're getting some real insight.
so
We're getting some real insight the way,
no,
the way we have
but
to
what I mean, so
listen to
now,
this guy.
but now, the other person, there's a potential for humility to show its face, correct? But it's also potential for acknowledging, admiring the person, start respecting the person, and mainly because you have no choice. That moment dictates that unless you want to make a fool of myself. If you want to make a fool of myself, you can react any which way. Will be just fine. But obviously, that's not going to be the case. So now it's almost like I play with a jazz band and I haven't played for a while, and I'm telling them, "Hey guys, let's play something medium. Okay, let's not go too fast." Guess what they do? They do giant steps. So I'm just like saying, okay, they're obviously I'm in it. So what do? I play the alternative aspect because I'm a master. I'm a master of the alternative. I tell you, if I can say something about myself, I'm a master. I'm probably the strongest person, mind and body, when it comes to the alternative and utilizing it instinctively in the world is me. So what happens is when I look at the band, I said, I'm going to play. And instantly, it's a brief second, suddenly I'm doing my alternative approach. I know what the standard is. They will realize soon enough that I know what it is. But then they will realize in order to bring it back to the zone of comfort, what do they have to do? Behave themselves.
But and another way of saying that is yours, that out of the box thinking as anybody, the alternative, that coming up with something new. But that's
And
funny.
it's open to any interpretation. That's why I don't say freestyle impressionism expression. It's just the alternative. That which is there. You'll choose it. You'll identify it. You'll. This is your task.
So how long have you been working with this guy?
We know each other
Yeah,
3-4 years or something. Four years.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this guy's a legend. So, but wait. So go back. Let's backpedal a little bit. The writing, and for you, and what you were just saying, but you've written a book. With your aphorisms, and I was listening to your interview on that other show, and you were talking about your aphorisms. In fact, one, good cannot fail. I mean, some of them just were simple, but bad cannot fail to do good. I love that. Bad cannot fail to do good. And then, but the aphorisms, the simple way, and I was listening pretty carefully. It was the simple way, and originally it was to say simple things. There's no simple way to say simple things, but originally there's no simple way to say clever.
To say simple things.
Yeah. So tell us about the book and the writing.
Well, first of all, my girlfriend then made a mistake, and she wrote, "There's no simple way to say simple things." And we sat on, I'm not kidding you, 98th Street and Broadway. We had an apartment then. And we were like on top of the world. We were like doing hand making, the first prototype and all this. And we spoke about it for hours. What would be clever way to say clever things, simple way to say clever things, clever way to say simple things. But we never considered simple way to say simple things. But we made a decision. So it's funny what made her come and make the mistake.
But that
a lovely mistake.
But yeah, a lovely mistake. Sometimes those things will just come in to kind of lead you in a great direction. It's such a good saying. There's no simple way to say the simple things. It's really true.
This habit I picked up in San Francisco, and I lived there for about 8 months in the winter of 1984. And my girlfriend and I, we were so compatible. We shared all the qualities you can imagine. We had really great time together. So I had this level of restlessness that I didn't know how to get rid of this feeling of restlessness, because it just made me feel that I don't belong to myself in those moments, And so my girlfriend used to say, we lived right on the edge of the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, a park, which is 40 blocks going all the way to the ocean. And so she said, just go to the park, just get with the walking, like pay attention to your walking. She was like this, outside of yourself, in order to find yourself so deep inside, you don't even remember how you got so deep. And but she always said, don't forget your notebook. Not because. So now I went a few times, and while I was at the park, I said, wow, am I blessed with this company of mine. She's telling me to go out so that which is important will find its way in. Okay? Because you want to get rid. What is the sensation of restlessness? Something that glides over your skin. It doesn't penetrate, it doesn't go inside you, but it's like a fuzz that is at first is okay, but quickly enough it just becomes so annoying that you feel like jumping, like whatever. Not good. So here she made me think about something that I haven't thought about before, that I really genuinely realized that I lost the sensation of restlessness, at least for the session itself. Of course, then the way was easy to prolong it, to find a way to prolong it. But I learned that I can go and will it that way, meaning I'm going to write poems, but if I cannot write a poem, I must write a sentence, something. So suddenly it became actually that sentence, at the beginning, it was the beginning of the poem that was never written. When quickly enough, I realized that if I am already about to write a sentence, it's got to be self-sufficient. So that means a proverb or an aphorism, whatever it is. So now it was the magic. So but then again, at the same token, I felt so unsatisfied from the level of writing, even though it worked. So I said, I'm just going to allow myself once to get away with it, no more.
Wow. So, and look, every time I'm listening to you and listening to you talk about your art and it sounds like a cliche, your process, but listening to the way you're approaching things, you it always, I feel this, and I hear you talking about the struggle, the pain, the struggle for, and you said great line. You said a breakthrough. Like when you're struggling with something, the breakthrough is like a ceasefire between who you are and the challenges that are facing you. I loved it.
Yeah.
So everything you're doing is going and fighting some challenges to break through to something. And then but I love that there's a ceasefire between
you
who
and
you
your
are,
obstacles.
your challenges and your obstacles. Great line. Great line.
Yeah.
So, but that's who you are. That's your art, is breaking through things.
Look, I met this guy about 20 years ago, and this book is actually more than 20 years. And so I showed him some of the manuscript, one of which said, "People love people. People kill people. People kill people they love." That's what I wrote.
Yeah.
Okay, so I gave him a manuscript of so many proverbs or whatever. And he comes to me and he gives me the complete works of a huge book of this flamboyant British writer. Now why? Because one of his most famous sentences was, "For people kill people they love." It was a big deal. So he saw that it was my original proverb or whatever it was, because he saw the beginning sentence and the closing sentence, and he said, "Good for you, son." So what do we learn from this? We learn that you can buy someone's world instantly, and that it will run as meaningful as it can get if you were to spend time, hundreds of hours with these people. That's why poetry is important. When people say, "I go to a poetry session, I leave, I don't remember anything." And that's a very fair statement. But what they make out of it and what I make out of it is two different things. So I asked them, "Can you remember one thing, one image?" So someone says, "Sailboat," for example, and I teach them a way to carry that image into what most probably was the poem, which is not important to be able to recollect. But what's important is that sailboat. So people 20 years later will tell you, that sailboat that that sailboat that sails in your mind and reaches the distances where your forefathers were nesting and all that. I remember that. But you read 1 hour, 100 poems. Every time this person will see you, he said, that sailboat's still sailing all the way to the to connect with the ancient fathers, our forefathers that are nesting somewhere. What a great feeling. So he owns something that he treasures for the rest of his life. And what was it? An instant of a long reading of poetry. That's why the world needs poetry.
The way you connect things like that, and the reason you need poetry, I wouldn't know why you would need poetry. I know I like it. I know what it says. I've written things and find a different expression through it, but that's why you need poetry. So your connection of your spirituality side, of your artistic side, and of your practical day-to-day side, but you're connecting all of these things together. It's uh, Jody. We were talking, and the guest that I had earlier, Bobby Murray, is working with me, and great guy. And they were talking about music and jazz and the artistic process. But jazz, when we talked about getting into the zone, when you're really clicking, and jazz musicians are really clicking together. Sports guys, everybody getting into the zone. So with you, what is that for you when you're kind of? Do you have like your zone when you're connecting all those things together that you're talking about? Is there like a place where you're like in some sort of creative, artistic zone and some other thing is manifesting itself through you?
Yeah, I mean, it won't be as defined as you put it to be, but cross implementation is the biggest privilege that an artist can have available to him or her. Because I wish I could, um, I wish I could paint a painting the way I write a poem. My paintings will be beyond exquisite, and with the just the payment, my dues will be next to zero. And I'll be able to get away with it with paying very, very small price. It'll be seamless. But I will never sit and dwell. How come I cannot? How come it's easy there? So look around. Feel blessed that you have that available as a tool. But the tools themselves are entities in themselves also. Writing poetry is like my sister taught me. I come from a family where the written word was important. My sister was penetrating the Hebrew language from all directions in a very genuine, honest way. I used to ridicule her because I was 16 and 17 until she gave me the chance to find out what it means and what it feels and why it's important, how it's important to write poetry. But the first encounter I had, my sister was surprised and she expressed it out loud. So now, from ridiculing my sister, I find myself in the midst of a very rare moment that my sister is actually allowing herself to rave about me, about something I've never done. Just wrote a poem because we wanted to make a point. So I wrote 3 poems, and then she taught me what metaphors mean. I didn't know what metaphors meant before that. And she said, these are your first 3 poems ever, and look how many metaphors you have in this. So now I'm realizing, okay, I need to keep quiet because the quieter I will be, the more I'm going to inhale this information, suppress it. I mean, make it kind of tight, and because later you're going to have all the time in the world to dwell into it.
Yeah.
But that zone that you speak of is a zone that has a mind of its own, Yeah, we can influence it, but not so much so that it will kind of change the end result.
Where there's something now channeling. There's a meditation. I relax and cast aside all mental burdens, allowing you to express through me your divine wisdom, your divine peace, your divine serenity, your divine love, your divine bliss. And you repeat that a lot. But the the well, actually, before I don't want to lose a point. I want to go back to the metaphor before I go to that. So the use of metaphors, you just kind of understood the use of metaphors. I mean, there's this is the romantic in me. Ivan Turgenev, he wrote First Love, great thing, and he uses a metaphor to describe first love. And the first time you hear it, it's like, well, but then if you've had your first love and you listen to this metaphor, but I hope I get this right, Judy. I hope I get this right. So he says about describing his first love. He goes, "What is there then that has remained for me fresher, more precious than the memory of that morning spring thunderstorm, which sped so swiftly past?"
Mm-hmm.
And as we get older and we look back and we try to remember that first love, and it was so fast, as we get older, those first loves, where did it go so quickly? But it was like so dramatic, like the morning spring thunderstorm, glorious, beautiful, heavenly, and it sped so swiftly past. So metaphors, things like that I love. So your sister was getting you into the metaphors?
Oh yeah, no, into writing itself,
Yeah.
because and in Hebrew you can't compare. Hebrew has a different kind of rhythm and weight to it, unforgiving, but also allowing you much more um, a room to venture, because it's so kind of vast and so available in the cases, and the just that level of sophistication maybe even stands in your way. But yeah, she taught me about it. So it's almost, I remember once where I was in a session with David Ignatov. I don't know if you know David Ignatov. Was a very famous poet, and he used to give workshops here in the late 80s, early 90s. And in one of the sessions that I attended, I was very fragile, very vulnerable. And I remember that my turn came to read. I, I, I said, when the unborn child floats on the godly liquid, um, 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 destiny appears as an undecided genetic particle. Okay? Look at this. As much as it's alternative, isn't it self-explanatory? When the unborn child floats on the godly liquid, there's a metaphor. Then it comes across as an undecided genetic particle due to that. So David Ignatov stopped the session, didn't allow me to finish the poem. That's a world-renowned poet. And I was almost thankful in the midst of being terrified, because I said, better off that I won't finish the poem. Because what better than the opening that's going to kind of have to enter their hearts, and it will be like crazy glue in their hearts. It will never leave them. That's it. I've done my thing. So I wanted to get up and say, get a life, man. What are you doing? Are you in your right mind? So instead of that, I said, well, you allowed everyone to read, to finish. Why don't you let me finish? So he says, okay, guys, is he preaching us? That's what he said. So now, if it was another person that would really take it to heart, it would be the end of his. It would be so traumatic, he wouldn't even attempt. He might even skip on all the wonderful, promising future that he might have had otherwise. It's like emotional death sentence. But for me, I was more like, okay, you know what? Uh, you wrote once a very important poem about the bagel. But in my mind, I thought of what it is that I want to tell him, but I didn't. And it was like, yeah, right, you and your bagel poem. Because what did he do? He went and he wrote a bagel in a bagel shop, and he's standing outside and he looks at that tempting bagel and give me a friggin' bagel break. You and your bagel. That's your heritage? A bagel? Standing out, didn't
You
even
and your
go
bagel.
into the bagel store. You stayed out.
Yeah.
And then you're telling us, so yeah, it was all about give me your hand. I'll take you step by step. We'll go the entire round and I'll show you everything. But he forgets to say, but I know nothing about nothing. That's why I'm only going to show you. But I got nothing to say about nothing. I'm just going to say that the trip itself, and I'm giving you a self of confidence because I'm holding your hand and because I know my way around. But to say something, I got exactly nothing. So he thinks that that the walking and the showing is enough for the lack of not knowing. You know what I mean? For lack of knowing. So what's going to compensate for that? I'm going to hold you firm and I'm going to show you. And later on, you say, my God, we started, we finished. That was awesome. But was one question asked? No. Was one question answered? Of course not. So where we right back where we started, if not even backwards a little bit. So this is the world in a nutshell. So that's why in Auschwitz, when someone killed 85,000 people with his own revolver and made a list of all the people he killed, still was completely shaking and emotionally and spiritually when he knew that the pianist that he adored and admired for years and years and years is an inmate in Auschwitz.
Wait, do it again. What? I'm
So
following.
evil and the villain himself, when he heard about someone from his distant past before he became a killer and became evil, you understand? Suddenly, he's being reminded of the power of art, of the essence, the core, the depth. So suddenly he's in Auschwitz and he's too busy killing the entire world and slaughtering everyone in his path. And suddenly he's there. So he is on his knees. And he wants to ask for forgiveness while he also needs to hear the professor say, I will teach you. Because he said he brought a piano in Auschwitz to his office. But he did not stop killing. He went in and out constantly to kill people. And came back to look at his master. Who is his master? A musician. That he couldn't even get the chance, not in 1 in a trillion, to be next to him if it was otherwise. You follow what I'm saying? So now, what is he? He's belittled. He's dumbfounded. The humility and humiliation at the same time. Follow? Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, we need to go there sometimes to understand what is the strength of art. You're going to your studio, just like Fraser Dougherty told me. You come into LTV, you put the key, you turn the key. You don't even find out if the door is still locked or you can open it. You can turn it back to where, pull the key and go home. You fulfilled your task. And it wasn't a joke what he said. It was like, listen, you made it. The rest is extra.
Well, so, and I love whenever you refer back to Fraser. He was I like that guy a lot. Had a bunch of conversations with him and his wife, and over at their house a lot, and what he did for here. But you were working with him a lot closer than I ever did. But and I was so sorry that I couldn't be here when they had that memorial, but you were here for that. But so let's go back with it, because you have that origin here. You're also the curator of the art shows. I mean, besides your own art, I'm looking at the stuff that I got, the one that looks like Jackson Pollock down at the end. But tell us about that, your participation here in curating the art shows.
We started about 26 years ago. Actually, Sabina Hindra.
Sabina,
yeah.
Love Sabina. Matt.
She was
Matt
Sabina,
yeah.
She was the early. I think 2-3 years before I took over. She was a force to be reckoned with, and we did monthly exhibitions, and then I took over, and for 26 years we utilizing, excluding 2 years of the pandemic, we were steady as she goes, doing group art shows. And there's something very clean about it. Very, I would lie to you if I was to say that I don't have second thoughts now and then, I think I had enough kind of thing. But then it's ridiculous. Of course, I consider it as I ridicule it at the same time.
Haim, there is a consistency in your conflict. You always have this conflict going on. It's this conflict resolved, that tension. But everything that you do, even what you're talking about now, that's great. It drives you. But it reminds me, okay, my mind, and whenever I talk to you, it goes all over the place. But JFK, he gave that one speech about us going to the moon. He said, we choose to do that because we choose to do the difficult thing. You are always going into the difficult thing. You never take. Not once do I ever hear anything that inspires you taking the easy road. You're always looking for some place to find some conflict and go in there and fight it, like some art warrior is going to conquer something, in the artistic world, and the conflict between the artistic expression and the real world. But it drives you, man. It's just like it's part of your, MO.
Yeah, but I look at you. I went like, but I look at you. I mean, do you look at yourself and see how unique you are? Because you're very unique in your energy, and you naturally don't make a big deal of things. That's what works for you. I have to work hard for it. You have it as a natural resource. You know what I mean? I think that you should look more often into it because it's a commodity what you have, and you. What it is that you can do with it, if I may suggest, is that you can reverse everything. That means, let's just say how you opened the session today. Talked about writing in the world and the thing and what this presentation. So you will, next time when you start that presentation, 30 seconds into it, you will start reversing things. You know what I mean? And I cannot tell you what it means. You have to find out what it means. So that means you have to work against what it is that you want about to say. So now, because otherwise what's going on, if you're not alternative and you will repeat yourself, it's short-lived. You follow what I'm saying? But if you're unpredictable to begin with by your own nature, then unpredictability is a nothing for you. It's just like, just show up and there will be unpredictability. But you have to resist the temptation. You have to keep a straight face through the process. That's a great sentence that I love and adapt. You keep a straight face through the process. People will think that you're eternal, indestructible, because the whole world around you is changing, emotions, this, that. You're keeping a straight. And so what it tells them, out of the unknowingness of what it really means, comes the answer. Well, something must be strong there. That's what the world interprets.
What you describe is kind of what the Niels Bohr and Einstein, where Einstein looked for one way to define the world, and Niels Bohr said, no, something, it's like quantum physics. No, it is all random, and you can't kind of count on anything. So, and that kind of conflict, that's kind of fascinating when you look at it, but that's the way you think. I love that.
Yeah. But that's a definition of who you are. I just explained to you who you are.
Well,
like, I mean, with all the respect, but what I'm saying is that uniqueness. So I can only imagine how the average person out there looks. He will look more honest than I would, because I'm kind of here, I'm close to you, I feel it, I know what's going on. But you have to immediately insert something that will make it the same but different but the same. You know what I mean? So there will be something. So you will start with the little things, and then it will be who you were just a little bit. The rest will be what I'm hoping that you will achieve.
Well, even like what happened the last time we spoke to each other, I left here, and for 3 days later, I'm thinking about all the things you said. Things you said. So thank you for that description. What you were trying to tell me about myself, I'm going to be thinking about that and working with it for a while. And at 12 o'clock at night, I'm going to. Oh my God! Now I got what he said. But
for example, just 30 seconds. I know we're almost done, but I'll give you the example. One of the metaphors that I wrote in my first poem that my sister said, "Haim, what's going on?" was about this mouse that just munches on something, and it just came to describe some state of mind or some thought and all this. So what do you think I did for 10 minutes when I was sharing with the people in my show, in the middle of the show? Dwelling with this mouse, that mouse with the cry for help, and man, I couldn't consider failure in being there where I was when I was sharing with people about this metaphor. It was unbelievable. Why? Because I knew the image. The image is mine. I wrote it, but it's nothing of an image. It's just that mouse doing his little things. How much can you say about it? Well, if you decide that that's what you're going to hold on to for the next 5-10 minutes, you're free forever. It's eternity in the making, and it's the epitome of that which we always think that we can never reach and never get the chance to touch or to feel.
I think you used that. I think I've heard you say that metaphor before about the mouse thing.
Yes.
And then what you were, and so again, I'm going to be carrying that later and thinking about it a lot. And what you started to say again, thank you for what you were describing to me about my thing, about the way I approach things. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, great. He said, and it really helped me. He said, when you're in conflict, he said, define things down into manageability first. He said, we know that sentence, what you resist persists, what you look at disappears. But Daniel Patrick Moynihan said, but when you have a conflict like that, and you see that in what I do, it's like, first, whatever it is you're looking at, if it's difficult, first define it some way that is now manageable. And then once you've defined it into manageability, then you can kind of make it disappear and it's no longer a problem. Yeah. So it's kind of the way I learned to do things thanks to him. But that's why I kind of stay away. I shy away from conflict. You go like right in there, and I kind of try to.
And you can easily find yourself doing exactly that when you speak of writing and all this. You can very easily fail. I mean, I'm using the word fail for lack of a better word, but I'm not talking about failure. I'm talking about just not succeeding to go where or in the way that you want to go and where you want to go, and to actually arrive to destination. It doesn't have to be overnight, but you want to arrive to destination. Take writing and make it suddenly look pathetic. But you don't want to say pathetic, but you want to describe it that is just something that I want to address it so much so that I'm going to put it aside completely for now in order to explain what it is. So I'm actually that void, because I'm putting it aside. You create a void that is you giving yourself a present, an available fresh time, fresh space. Now, okay, so what do you hear? What is the word that's coming? What's the sound that's coming? Yeah, as cliche as it is, grab it, bring in this, that. You don't have to say, I hear that, therefore we're going to talk about and bring the images and inform everyone that that's what's happening. You bring them without revealing what you're going through, but you're going through. But you have control over it. And the more you practice it, the more you don't even have to go through it. You just get it's coming, and it's a given. Because if I say we're here at LTV Creative, and rightfully so, that we should feel this way, anytime that I will start with this sentence, I'm done. I have 55 minutes of reservoir, and rightfully so. Informing everyone, there's no other way than to think, but rightfully so, that we should feel exuberant and heightened and enlightened and inspired and whatnot. Of course. So rightfully so is a big deal in my process of
rightfully so.
Having that reservoir that can bail you out in moments of where am I going? Where am I? What's my name?
But your reservoir. So, oh God, how much time do we have? You guys are really good at this. How much?
A minute.
Oh God, we only got a minute. You get into the woods. As soon as you get going, it's like a vacation. As soon as you start to get into it, you got to go back home. So as soon as I'm getting into it, but you and that reservoir, we got to come back again. I want to talk about
rightfully
that
so, and reservoirs for the next time.
Yeah, but we have to end our session now. I want you to remember where we are the next time you come back for our next session. So Jody, we love him. He's our guy, and Haim. Never a lack of intellectual inspiration when you're talking to this guy, and I can't wait till we come back and do it again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me.
And your energy is one of a kind.
Well, thank you. So the living novel, log into the BaysideExperiment.com and learn about the living novel. The next time we're here, we're going to actually take you in the book. So have your laptops open and have your laptops ready. We're going to take you in the book, and we're going to show you places that you can go and you can contribute and be a participant in the living novel that we're all involved with. So thank you again. Jody, you're the best, man. Thank you.